Tensions between the police and protesters had simmered for months. In October 2016, they boiled over. Welcome to WatchMojo News, the series from WatchMojo.com where we break down news stories that might be on your radar. In this installment, we're counting down 5 crucial facts you should know about the Dakota pipeline protest crackdown. Number 5. What was the goal of the protesters? The Dakota pipeline protests center around plans to build a 1,134-mile-long pipe to transport crude oil from the Bakken oil field in North Dakota through South Dakota and Iowa to Patoka, Illinois. The proposed route crosses beneath the Mississippi and Missouri rivers and skirts half a mile from the Standing Rock Indian Reservation, so any potential spill could have disastrous implications for the local water supply. The Environmental Protection Agency called for a formal environmental impact assessment to be carried out before plans go ahead, but concern grew in July 2016 when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers fast-tracked water crossing permits to push forward the build. Protests have been ongoing all year, but were first picked up by major news agencies during the late summer. Protesters are concerned that the pipeline could pose a safety risk for residents of Standing Rock and also that the pipeline could upend sacred Sioux tribal sites. Number 4. What actions were taken by authorities? On October 27th, local authorities arrived at a protest camp that had been set up on private land owned by the Texas-based company Energy Transfer Partners. The company had been building the pipeline, having been given the go-ahead for construction up to the edges of Lake Oahe, a reservoir on the Missouri River. Police arrived in riot gear and were reportedly armed with tear gas, pepper spray, and beanbag rounds to evict protesters, some of whom had locked themselves to building machinery in defiance. No serious injuries were reported during the operation that took about 6 hours to complete and resulted in over 140 arrests. The clearance of the site was carried out one day after protesters had been asked to voluntarily leave, and a continued police presence was set up following the standoff. The clearance of the camp signifies some of the most aggressive actions carried out by the police, after months of negotiations. Number 3. What has been the response of the public and the government? The protest has come to be a significant flashpoint in the national conversation regarding Native American rights and the right to free speech. Activists argue that they are being attacked for voicing their defiance and for trying to protect their water, while the police say it is simply responding to illegal activity being carried out on private land. Charges that have been issued include trespassing, participating in a riot, and resisting arrest. Energy Transfer Partners claims that it has carried out all necessary investigations into the local area, and that the pipeline doesn't interfere with important cultural or sacred spots, and that the concerns are unfounded. The clash has also drawn the attention of some high-profile personalities, including civil rights activist Reverend Jesse Jackson and actors Mark Ruffalo and Shailene Woodley.
I've been on the phone all day with them. It's very scary, and these people are just like us. We can't forget our humanity in the face of these kinds of things.
Woodley was arrested earlier in October for her part in the protest.
All right, I'm being arrested.
The pipeline has also been linked to the 2016 presidential race. Republican nominee Donald Trump is reported to have financial links to the Energy Transfer Partners firm, while the protest was brought to Democrat Hillary Clinton's door when activists met outside her campaign headquarters in New York City, but were not received. Number 2. Why has this invited controversy? As the confrontation gets more aggressive, it has also grown increasingly controversial. The tactics of some activists, including the setting of fires and vandalism of property, has angered authorities, onlookers, and peaceful protesters. Others, including the activists themselves, are dismayed at how harsh the crackdown on demonstrations has been, with the police choosing to employ brute force and issue a wide number of arrests. For some, the case has highlighted inconsistencies in how protests are dealt with in America, particularly considering the surprising acquittal of those involved in a 41-day standoff against police at an Oregon wildlife refuge in January, which was announced a day after Standing Rock was evacuated.
I'm here to offer safe escort out.
In this instance, an armed group had occupied the refuge for almost a month and a half in protest over land control laws. The acquittal labels the Oregon protest as justified civil disobedience, but many of those protesting the Dakota pipeline fear a less favorable outcome for their cause. Number 1. What's next for the pipeline? In total, there have been over 400 arrests since protests began at Standing Rock. While the latest, and by most measures largest standoff so far, has been quashed by the police, protesters have vowed that the fight against the building of the pipeline isn't finished.
With unity, there's a lot of things that we can overcome.
Tensions have reached new highs as Energy Transfer Partners continue to build despite the unrest. Advocates for the pipeline say it will have huge economic benefits and mean that America will be less reliant on imported oil. Those against say it's an unnecessary environmental threat. And, due to the high emotions involved, the Dakota pipeline protest has forced the United States to think over how effective its freedom of speech and civil rights laws are. Whatever the outcome, if the demonstrations are successful or not, it's a debate which will rumble for some time yet. Did these facts get you thinking? To vote for which news story is covered next, head over to WatchMojo.com/suggest, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more newsworthy top 5s published every week.
Both protesters and police say there is no end to these demonstrations in sight.